Okay, so round two, we're going to take some of these learning objectives and we're going to talk about what's wrong with the learning objectives. And then we'll take some of those TEKs and turn them into good learning objectives. So in this one, students will be given opportunities to learn effective communication skills. So what's wrong in this particular learning objective is you've got given opportunities to learn. So one, I don't think you're trying to measure yourself on giving students opportunities. That's not really what you're trying to see if they know. You're trying to look at something with effective communication skills, but what do you want them to do with those effective communication skills? How do they demonstrate that? So learn is not a measurable verb, so that one's not going to work. And then with this one, you need to get more specific as well. So effective communication skills are lots of different things. So what are those things? Are you talking about speaking? Are you talking about writing? What communication skills are you referring to? So we need to change the verb, but we need to get more specific here on the communication skills part. This next one, the students will list the main events of Corduroy in chronological order and create a comic strip of the main events. So in this one, we've got two behaviors going on, and this is one of the things that I talked about that your TEK might say, but we need to narrow it down. So we've got list the main events, and we've got create a comic strip. So that creating a comic strip is kind of like how you want them to show that, maybe sort of, but it ends up having two behaviors in it. And the reason we want to get away from two behaviors inside of a learning objective is because you need to be able to measure one learning objective and measure another learning objective. Let's say a student created a comic strip but didn't necessarily list them in chronological order. Well, they've met half of the objective but not the full objective. So you don't really know if the student has mastered that particular objective. So you want to have one behavior inside of your objective, not two. So I would be okay if you just said the students will list the main events of Corduroy in chronological order. What might be even better is if you talked about how many main events you were looking for. That would kind of put in the degree a little bit. So that would make it more specific. The students will collect data and make observations using simple equipment such as hand lenses, primary balances, and non-standard measurement tools. So in this one, again, we've got two behaviors, collect data and make observations. And in many of your science TEKs, you'll see this, collect data, record data, and make observations, and they're giving you this kind of long laundry list of things. So again, what I want you to do is to narrow it down and choose one behavior. So maybe part of their collecting of data is making observations that you'll explain to that in class, but for your learning objective, just the students will collect data using, and you can talk about that, using these simple equipment is how they're going to be collecting the data. In this next one, the students will discover contemporary problems in the field of biology. With this one, it's just very broad. It kind of reads more like a rationale than it does a learning objective. So discover is another one of those no-no verbs that you really can't measure. So you would need to change the verb from discover to something else that matches that level of blooms in your TEKs. Contemporary problems, again, what does that kind of look like? That could be a lot of different things. So narrowing that down will help you when you go to measure the student say, okay, yes, that's really what I was looking for, or no, it's not. I mean, sometimes as teachers, we put something out there and we're like, we get something back. That's not what I was looking for. That's not my goal. Well, maybe it wasn't so much the student as we weren't really clear in our expectation from the beginning. Okay, so if we're looking, I think my dog came in the back. If we're looking at making the following objectives better, let's take a look at that. So in this one, we've got a good measurable verb, summarize the main events of a story. What I would like you to do to make it more smart objective is to actually tell me what story you're using. As an actual classroom teacher, you're going to have a story ready to go. So what is that story? And that's where it needs to be age appropriate. So if you're teaching kinder, what does that story look like? If you're teaching sixth grade, what does that story look like? And main events is fine. We just need to change this up. The next one, the students will identify the parts of a book. So identify, again, is a measurable verb, so that part works well. The parts of a book can be interpreted a lot of different ways, so you have to go back and look at your TEKs. Parts of a book, does that mean like the title page, the index, the table of contents, or does that mean a beginning, middle, and end? So what are the parts of the book, and again, what books are you using? And then the student will be able to demonstrate an understanding of persuasive writing techniques. So demonstrating writing techniques Okay, but again, an understanding, that's what it looks like is being measured. We're not trying to demonstrate their understanding. We're trying to see if they can actually use persuasive writing techniques. To be even clearer, you might want to dictate what are some of those writing techniques that you're looking for and not make it so open-ended. And this last one, the student will examine the ethical conduct of American businesses during the Industrial Revolution. So it's actually pretty good. What I would want you to do, so examine the ethical conduct. Again, that's kind of a gray one for me. How are they going to examine that? Are they going to give you something written? Examine usually is at the analyze level, so you want them to analyze the ethical conduct. That one I would just like to firm up a little bit so I have some idea of how you want them to examine it. American businesses during the Industrial Revolution, is there a certain type of a business that you're looking for, like manufacturing or something else? So maybe a little bit more specific, and maybe a little bit more specific on the verb. Okay, so we're going to stop here. And the next one, we're going to be looking at taking those TEKS and turning them into learning objectives.